So one of the number one questions I get about house flipping is, isn't it really hard to find good contractors? Or how do you avoid being in a bad situation with a contractor? Because that's really what's keeping me from getting started. I get these questions all of the time, and that's why in today's episode, I am going to share 7 ways to simplify working with contractors. And believe me, I know that things can go wrong, but they can also go very right. And a contractor and their relationship to you is a very integral part of your flipping success. So stay tuned and come back for these 7 tips that I know you will find value in as well. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Amber Miller, and for the last 15 years, I have been flipping houses. I've been in real estate, renovation, design, and now I've been working to educate people and help them build successful flipping businesses of their own. And one of the questions that inevitably comes up when we talk about house flipping is the contractor relationship. And I want to assure you that in over 200 projects, I have never one single time not been able to find a contractor to help me get a project completed. They are such an integral part of this process, but it is also important that we take certain steps and measures to protect ourselves, because ultimately at the end of the day, we have the most interest in that house flip. So we need to make sure we're making good decisions and making business decisions wisely. So number 1, when you're working with a contractor, especially if there's somebody you have not worked with before, make sure that you're making any of those big material purchases. And what do I mean by that? Well, normally when a contractor is going to make a big order for materials, they might ask you for a significant down payment to help offset or cover those expenses. If you're not comfortable and you haven't been able to work with them before, and that just doesn't sit well with you, cutting them a check for $20,000, $25,000, or $30,000, and it shouldn't in the beginning, then what you can do is offer them the option to meet with them at the supplier and you pay for those materials at that time. What this then allows you to do is have control and make sure that those materials are the ones that you want for your property, making sure that you're getting the payment in so that the delivery is actually going to be scheduled. And it also gives you peace of mind in knowing that you're not leaving that part of it in someone else's hands. I know for a lot of people this can be inconvenient, but especially in the beginning, if you have that transparent conversation with the contractor and just say, you know what, I need to make sure, since we haven't worked before together, that these materials are actually going to be delivered to my job site, so I'll just meet you there and take care of the payment instead. That just lets them know that in the future, that is something that you may want to do as well. Or if you decide to work on future projects together and you've now develop that rapport with them, then maybe you'll allow them to do that ordering in the future. But for right now, this is the best way it works for you so that you can continue that relationship. You can also have this conversation before you even get started on the job. You can also do it when they're giving you the bid, just so that they're comfortable and clear and knowing what's going to happen going forward. Number 2, you want to make sure you're structuring the payments wisely. I cannot tell you how many times I've heard stories from people who said, I wrote somebody a check for $40,000 and I never saw them again. The problem with those big payments and people that we haven't worked with before is we simply don't know if they're going to make good on their commitment and whatever they've committed to doing with our job. So in order to avoid that type of situation, my recommendation is you do 4 payments and you do a primary payment. You can negotiate how much it is. For some people, it might be 10% of the overall job. For some people, it might be 15%, depending on what you're having done and what the amount is. But you never want to be giving anybody more than 1/3 before they've ever even started the job, because that's just too much money. So then the other 2 payments we structure in our contracts based off benchmarks. So after rough-in, there is another payment that is due, and that is all the rough-in. So that's mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. And then we deliver another payment when the progress is now to the point where all of the interior trim and walls have been painted, as well as the ceilings. And then our last payment is enough of a payment that we want to make sure that they would want to finish out any work to get that. And then we also make that contingent upon any final touch-ups, any inspection items, and all permits being closed. That way we're all very clear on what is expected for those payments to be made and those benchmarks to be met with progress on the project as well. Number 3, you want to make sure you're doing random job site visits. Why do you want to make sure you're doing random job site visits? Well, because if they're telling you that they're going to be on site getting work done, you want to check in and make sure they're actually there. If they're supposed to be meeting an inspector and the inspector gives you a phone call and says, hey, nobody's here, that's a problem, right? So you want to make sure that you're stopping in to see that the things that you have agreed to be done on your renovation are actually getting done. You want to make sure there's people there. You want to make sure that it's not just one person, especially if there's multiple trades that are supposed to be there. It just gives you a really good read on if your project is actually moving forward as it's supposed to. Also, another thing with random job site visits, you get to check the integrity of your property. Are the doors unlocked? Are they open? Is the property secure? Making sure things aren't able to be visible for theft. All of those things are important to keep your job site safe as well as your contractors moving forward. Number 4, sticking to the timeline. When you establish your contract with your contractors, you should also include both a start date and a completion date. And the reason for that is because if there's no completion date, then there's no target that everybody's working collectively towards to get that house done. So what you want to do is have that timeline, and that's why the random check-ins also help, and also those benchmark payments. So everything's working together to make sure the project is moving forward. Now, of course, things are going to come up like material delays or an inspector who missed an appointment and was on vacation and needs to come back at another time. However, if you never have a target for your completion date, it's going to be really hard to make any adjustments. And if you're not careful, the next thing you know is a 4-month project could be an 8-month project. So that's why keeping that timeline, sticking to it as best you can, and making those small adjustments immediately will help keep you on target and let you know when your project is going to be ready to list and put on the market. Number 5, be very clear on your expectations. And this starts at the very beginning before you even hire that contractor. So I'll share a story with you. We had a contractor who was interested in work and had gotten referred to us, and we thought this might be a great opportunity for us to work together. When I asked him what kind of projects he'd been doing before, he mentioned a lot of rental properties. And so I wanted to make sure that he was comfortable with the level of finish that we were doing in our flips before we agreed to bring him on. So before I even had him give me a bid, I actually walked him through one of our finished flips. And from the minute he walked in and saw the trim detail, the texturing on the ceilings, the quality of the drywall finished, he said, you know what, this is a completely different type of project and we probably wouldn't be a very good fit for you. By being very clear and actually showing him what we would have expected as a finished product, we were able to avoid a lot of frustration and potentially a relationship that would not have been good for either party. So being very clear when you're getting those bids and showing examples of the type of work you are looking for is going to help make sure you get the right contractors in for your projects. Okay, number 6, please make sure you're getting more than one bid. Because if you're not getting more than one bid, you don't know if somebody's incredibly low and somebody's way too high. And I can tell you, do not always choose the least expensive bid, because that can also be an indicator of poor quality or shortcuts on corners that are going to end up costing you at the end because you're going to have to redo them, or your house is going to sit longer and you're going to have to make price reductions because the potential buyers are not happy with what they're seeing. So make sure you're getting more than one bid, even if it's contractors you've worked with before, because sometimes people can get a little bit loose with their numbers. And if you really want to work with somebody, those negotiations can always apply to their bids as well. All right, and number 7, be prepared to end a contractor relationship. As uncomfortable as it may be, and as much as you may want to avoid it, trust me, they're not good. It's going to be better for you in the end than to continue to drag out a project that just isn't ever going to get finished. I know that for some people it can be incredibly frustrating, and it is going to cost you money no matter how you look at it, but it's better to lose that money earlier on and cut your losses and get somebody in there who can actually get the work done so you can get the home listed than it is to let somebody continue to drag it out for you. I know people who have had projects go on for months because somebody just kept having things come up when we really know now that that wasn't the case at all and that they were just stringing them along. They had no intention of actually finishing the project. But it didn't cost the contractor money, it cost the flipper the money. So you want to make sure you're protecting yourself in the best way possible. So ending that relationship sooner rather than later can definitely do that. Okay. There's 7 tips to simplify the process of working with contractors. I hope this list was helpful for you no matter where you're at in your business. Make sure you like, share, subscribe to this channel so that you catch all of the weekly videos coming out to help you build and scale and grow your house flipping business. And until next time, bye for now.